Peace. Highest heart love. Welcome to the YouTube book reading of The Healing Power of Water by Dr. Masaru Emoto. I'm your moderator and narrator, Uriel NEVEU. We pick up at chapter 15. This is going to be good. Peace, YouTube. All right. Chapter 15. Water Lore and Ritual in World Mythology by Terri, Windling. Water comes up from the ground. Water comes down from the sky. Water comes into our bodies. Water comes out of our bodies. All life is communicated through water. Nature talks to itself through the medium of water. We are born in water. We are of water. Tom Blue Wolf. Page 203. Welcome. Peace, everyone. From my Devon village in the west of England, it's a short distance through winding green lanes to the once independent kingdom of Cornwall, a land of mysterious standing stones, crumbling Celtic ruins, and ancient stories. On a bright, clear day near the summer solstice, a friend and I made a sacred pilgrimage to the Cornish countryside. We went seeking an ancient magic that lies beneath the surface of the rolling hills. Water magic, pooled in half-forgotten holy wells and springs, found in myths and legends, not only in the British Isles, but all around the world. A mile or so past the village of Collington, we parked at the edge of a farmyard and followed an overgrown footpath to Dewpath Well. Like many of the holy wells of Cornwall, the spring that runs through Dewpath Well is believed to have been a sacred site to Celtic peoples in the distant past. Its older use now overland with a gloss of Christian legend. At one time, this spring may have been surrounded by a grove of oak, rowan, and thorn, trees sacred to the Druids and practitioners of other animist religions. In 1510, a group of Christian monks claimed the Dewpath site for their own use, enclosing the spring in a small well house made out of rough-hewn granite. This was the common fate of many pagan sacred sites in the British Isles. Unable to dissuade the local people from visiting their holy places, Christian missionaries simply took them over, building churches where standing stones once stood, erecting bacterias over sacred springs, and cutting down groves of oak, rowan, and thorn in a new God's name. Peace. One can still find numerous holy wells buried all over the British countryside, many of them now named for saints and associated with the miraculous lives. But scratch the surface of these legends and older stories emerge like a palimpsest. Stories of fairy creatures, the knights of Arthur, and the old gods of the land. Inside the tiny chapel like building erected over a dew path well, the holy water pools in a shallow trough carved from a single granite slab. The air feels thick, heavy with shadows, with silence, with the ghosts of men and the women drawn to this spot over hundreds of years. The stones are worn where these people once knelt and prayed to the Virgin Mary or to the goddess of sacred springs. At the bottom of the trough lie a few copper coins, the modern custom of making wishes being not so very different from the pagan practice of throwing pins into a well to ask for blessings. I watch as my companion places an offering of wildflowers by the water, an equally ancient practice recalling a time when it was the land itself our ancestors worshipped, prayed to, and thanked for the gift of life. Peace, everyone. Hi, it's Heart Love. Peace, bro. Hi, it's Heart Love reading these books. This is that corner of YouTube that we read books and learn about other masters, right? Ancient water myths and rituals. Today, with clean water piped directly into our homes and largely taken for granted, it takes a leap of imagination to consider the greater importance of water to those who fetched it daily from the riverside or village well. Deeply dependent on the local water source for the crops and animals, our ancestors had a natural reverence for those places where good, pure water emerged like magic from the depths of the earth. As a result, water has played a role in myth, folklore, and sacred rites in cultures all around the globe, particularly in arid lands where the gift of water is most precious. Creation myths. According to a Blackfoot creation myth, in the beginning there was a great womb containing all of the animals, including Old Man. One day the womb burst and all creation was underwater. Old Man and the animals emerged floating on a large raft. Old Man suggested that Beaver dive down and try to bring up some mud. Beaver was gone a very long time, but still he couldn't reach the bottom of the water. Loon tried, Otter tried, but the water was just too deep for them. Finally, little Muskrat tried. He was gone so long that he was nearly dead when they pulled him onto the raft again. Yet he clutched a precious bit of mud in one of his little claws. From this mud, Old Man formed the land that emerged from the great ocean of water. And then he created all the peoples, trees, and plant life upon it. Peace. We find variations of this diver motif myth not only throughout North America, but also in cultures around the world, including Buryat cosmology, Finnish folktales, and the Hindu Puranas, water goddesses and nature spirits. Water goddesses and nature spirits. Many cultures associate water with woman, with the great goddess of several goddesses or a variety of female nature spirits. The Kung of Botswana, for example, attribute the mythic origin of water to women and therefore grant all women special power over water in all of its forms. All Mother, in an Aboriginal myth from northern Australia, arrived from the sea in the form of a rainbow serpent with children, the ancestors, inside her. She made water for the ancestors by urinating on the land, creating lakes, rivers, and water holes to quench their thirst. The living water, running water, of springs and natural fountains is particularly associated in ancient mythological systems with women, fertility, and childbirth. Greek wells and fountains were sacred to various goddesses and had miraculous powers, such as the fountain of Canathos, Canathos, is which Hera regained her virginity each year. Greek springs were said to be the haunts of water nymphs, elemental spirits shaped like lovely young girls. The original meaning of the Greek word for spring was nubile maiden. In Teutonic myth, the wildwood wife, a kind of forest fairy, who loves the hero Wolf Dietrich, uh, yes, Wolf Dietrich, and transformed into a human girl when she's baptized in a sacred fountain. The Norse god Odin seeks wisdom and cunning from the fountain of the nature spirit Mimir. He sacrifices one of his eyes in exchange for a few precious sips of the water. In Celtic legend, the salmon of knowledge swims in a sacred spring or pool under the shade of hazel tree. The falling hazelnuts contain all of the wisdom of the world and are swallowed by the fish. This is interesting, right? So good. Man, this is good. Look at this. Isn't that massive? The beauty of life comes in art, right? Ritual washing. We're at the middle of page 207, The Healing Power of Water by Dr. Masaru Emoto. We are up there, right? Chapter 15, Water Lore and Ritual in World Mythology. So, the middle of page 207, and we're now at ritual washing. Ritual washing in water or immersion in a pool has been part of various religious systems since the dawn of time. The priests of ancient Sis- uh, Egypt washed themselves in water twice each day and twice each night. In Siberia, ritual washing of the body, accompanied by certain chants and prayers, was a part of a shamanic practice. In Hinduism, ghats are traditional sites for public ritual bathing, an act by which one achieves both physical and spiritual purification. See chapter 19. In a strict Jewish household, hands must be washed before saying prayers and before any meal, including bread. In Islam, mosques provide water for the faithful to wash before each of the five daily prayers. In the Christian tradition, baptism is described by St. Paul's as a ritual death and rebirth, which simulates the death of and resurrection of Christ. See chapter 11. Flood mythology. In numerous stories, Earth itself is reborn after catastrophic floods. In Greek legend, Zeus sends a flood in which all perish except Deucalion and his wife, who managed to survive by floating in a chest for 9 days and nights, landing on Mount Parnassus. They wisely make a prompt sacrifice to Zeus. The god instructs the obedient couple to throw handfuls of stones over their heads. These turn into a new better race of men and women who repopulate the planet. In Welsh myth, the lake of Lion overflows and drowns the British Isles. One couple escapes in a mastless boat filled with animals like Noah's Ark and lands on dry land at last in Prydain or modern Wales. In Persian tales, the world is filled with wicked creatures ruled by the demon Ahriman. An angel, Tistar, comes to earth 3 times as a man, a horse, and a bull. Each time he brings 10 days and nights of heavy rain, flooding the globe. After several pitched battles with Ahriman, Tistar prevails, and the demons are driven from the world. But their poison, flushed from the land, causes the oceans to turn to salt. In Norse myth, the blood of the ice giant Ymir, who's slain by Odin, causes a massive flood, wiping out most of the ice giant race. Ymir's body becomes the earth, and his salty blood forms the oceans upon it, creating the world that humankind has inhabited ever since. India, Africa, Russia, and Tibet all have ancient tales of monumental floods, after which the blessed or just plain lucky members of the human race start anew. Regeneration through water. Hi, it's Heart Love. Thank you. Peace, Rana. Hi, it's Heart Love. This is really good. Yeah. You know, these are all different stories, right? And they're all dealing with sacred elements and the magical of those elements. And so we have the healing power of water, right? So regeneration through water. The idea of regeneration through water is echoed in tales around the world about fountains and springs with miraculous powers. The native peoples of Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Hispaniola all told tales of magical fountain of youth located somewhere in the lands to the north. So pervasive were these stories that in the 16th century the Spanish conquistador Ponce de Leon actually set out to find it once and for all, equipping 3 ships at his own expense. He found Florida instead. One Native American story recounts how the Fountain of Youth is created by 2 hawks in the netherworld between heaven and earth. But this fountain brings grief, as those who drink out of it outlive their children and friends, and eventually it's destroyed. In Japanese legends, the white and yellow leaves of the wild chrysanthemum confer blessings from the Kikujudi, Kikujudi, Jaidu, the chrysanthemum boy who dwells by the fountain of youth. These leaves are ceremonially dipped in sake to assure good health and long life. In the Alexander romances, Alexander sets off to find the fabled fountain of life in the land of darkness, beyond the setting sun. The prophet Khazir is his guide, but the two take separate forks in the road, and it's Khazir, not his master, who finds the fountain, drinks the water, and obtains the knowledge of God. Khazir is still venerated in modern India in both Hindu and Muslim traditions. In Muslim practice, he's honored by lighting lamps and setting them on little boats afloat on rivers and ponds. To the Celtic people, of the British Isles, certain waters were deemed to have healing properties and thus were under divine protection. The famous hot spring at Bath, Aqua Sulis, was dedicated to the goddess Sulis, who was linked from Roman times with one of the Roman own goddesses to become Sulis Minerva. The Romans built a temple on the site and a magnificent public bathhouse that still stands today. See chapter 18. Chalice Well in Glastonbury is reputed to be among the oldest of the continually used holy wells in Europe. Archaeological evidence suggests it has been a sacred site for at least 2,000 years. See chapter 17. Welcome, peace, everyone. Welcome to the sacred day. Another beautiful sacred reading of the healing power of water. Man, honor and love to Yellow Brick Media, Yellow Brick Cinema. Thank you for keeping us in harmony. We're at the top of page 210. Those reading along. Honor and love. Thank you for the love in the chat. Water rights. The standing stones and circles of Britain are generally found near wells of running water, attesting to the importance of water in pagan religious rites. With the spread of Christianity, a concerted effort was made to stamp out the older animist religions, which attributed divinity to nature. In the 5th century, a canon issued by the Second Council of Arles stated uncategor- uncategorically that if in the territory of a bishop infidels lit torches or venerated trees, fountains, or stones, and the bishop neglected to abolish this usage, he was guilty of sacrilege. Despite the destruction of ancient holy sites, pagan beliefs proved harder to eradicate. By the 7th century, Pope Gregory decided on a new approach and instructed St. Augustine to convert sacred sites to Christian use. Pagan wells became holy wells, and churches were built upon them or beside them. Yet the old ways must have persisted, for in the 10th 11th and 12th centuries, a stream of edicts was issued denouncing the worship of the sun or the moon, fire or flood, wells or stones, or any kind of forest tree. Wow, edicts issued saying you cannot give praises or thanks to any of these things. So that came from, the hierarchy in the society, in the government. Over time, however, pagan and Christian practices slowly blended together. Wells named after Christian saints were celebrated with festivals and rites on old pagan holidays. I'm gonna read that again. It's how we get here. It's how we get here. Over time, however, pagan and Christian practices slowly blended together. Wells named after Christian saints were celebrated with festivals and rites on old pagan holy holidays in ways that wouldn't have been unfamiliar to heathen people. On the Isle of Man, for instance, holy wells are still frequented on August 1st, a festival called Lugnas, Lugnadas, a day once sacred to the Celtic god Lu. August 1st is Lammas in the Christian calendar, but the older name for the holiday was still in use on the Isle of Man until the 19th century. In Scotland, the well at Loch Maree is dedicated to Saint Mauruba, but its annual rites involving the sacrifice of a bull, an offering of milk poured on the ground, and coins driven into the bark of a tree are clearly more pagan in nature. Page 211. Sacred Wells. The custom of well dressing is another Christian rite with pagan origins. During these ceremonies, still practiced in Derbyshire, and other parts of England. Village wells are decorated with pictures made of flowers, leaves, seeds, feathers, and other natural objects. In centuries past, the wells were dressed to thank the patron spirit of the well and request good water for the year to come. Now, the ceremonies generally take place on Ascension Day, and the pictures created to dress the wells are biblical in nature. As Christian tales were attached to the springs and wells, they became as colorful as any to be found in pagan folklore. Wells were said to have sprung up where saints were beheaded, or had fought off dragons, or where the Virgin Mary appeared to and left small footprints pressed into the stone. Wells dedicated to Saint Anne were called Granny Wells because, as the mother of the Virgin Mary, she was the grandmother of Christ, and particular powers concerning fertility and childbirth were attributed to them. Until Up until the 19th century, the holy wells of Britain and Europe were still considered to have miraculous properties and were frequently visited by those seeking cures for disease, physical deformity, or mental illness. Other wells were famous for offering prophetic information, generally determined through the movements of the water, leaves floating upon the surface, or fish or eels swimming in the depths. At some wells, the water was drunk from circular cups carved out of animal bone, an echo of the cups carved out of human skulls by the ancient Celtics, Celts. Pins, usually bent, coins, or bits of metal were common offerings. Rags tied to trees around the holy well were another tradition dating back to pagan times. The cloth was symbolic of ill health or misfortune left behind as one departed. Some wells, known as cruising wells, were rather less beneficent. Curses were made by dropping special cursing stones into the well, or the victim's names written on a piece of paper or wax effigy. At the famous cursing well of Ephanon, a lion in Wales, one could arrange for a curse by paying the well's guardian a fee to perform an elaborate cursing ritual. A curse could also be removed at the same place for a somewhat larger fee. You see, you see how that works? Huh. Doing evil for a fee, not for free. Doing curses, now money has to come involved. In the mid 19th century, Thomas Quiller Couch made interested in the history of sacred wells in Britain. He spent much of his life wandering the wilds of his native Cornwall, seeking them out. Extensive notes on this project were discovered among his papers after his death, and in 1884, The Ancient and Holy Wells of Cornwall was published by his daughters, the Mrs. M. and L. Quiller Couch. More recently, folklorist and photographer Paul Broadhurst revisited the sites documented by Quiller Couch, and in 1988 he published Secret Shrines in Search of the Old Holy Wells of Cornwall, an informative guide to the many sacred wells still to be found in the Cornish countryside, in addition to holy sites dedicated to the Celtic goddesses and Christian saints. Broadhurst discovered crumbling old wells half buried in ivy, bracken, and briars inhabited by spirits somewhat less exalted, the Piskies fairies of Cornish folklore. Wells under the protection of the Piskies are not to be trifled with, for they'll take their revenge on any who dare to disturb their homes. A farmer once decided to move the stone basin at St. Nun's Well, also known as Piskie's Well, with the intention of using it as water trough for his pigs. He chained it to two oxen and the top to the pulled it the top of a steep hill, whereupon it broke free of the chains, rolled down the hill, made a sharp turn right, and settled back into its place. One of the oxen died on the spot, and the farmer was struck lame. This rather enchanted looking well can still be found in the beautiful part of Cornwall between Liskeard and Low. Water fairies, top of page 213. Wow, this is so good. Hi, it's Heart Love, everyone. Thank you for reading The Healing Power of Water with us. This is so good. Happy Sabbath, happy Saturday. Water fairies. All running water, not just spring water, can prove to be the haunt of fairies. For crossing over or through running water is one of the ways to enter their realm. Here in Devon and Cornwall, one still finds country folk who avoid running water by dusk or dark, for the spirits who inhabit water can be troublesome, even deadly. The water spirit of the River Dart, for instance, is believed to demand sacrificial drownings, leading to well-known local rhyme. Dart, dart, cruel dart, every year she claims a heart. The water rat wraith of Scotland, thin, ragged, and invariably dressed in green, haunts riversides by night to lead travelers to a watery death. In the border country between Scotland and England, the washer by the ford walls wails as she washes the grave clothes of those who are about to die. This frightening apparition is similar to the dreaded being City Banshee of Irish legends. The being Nay is a similar creature found in both Highland and Irish lore. A dangerous little fairy with ragged green clothes and webbed red feet. Yet, if one can get between the being Nay and her water source, she's obliged to grant three wishes and refrain from doing harm. Jenny Greenteeth specializes in dragging children down in stagnant pools. The Welsh water leaper Lamheinen Idwa is a toad-like creature who delights in tangling fish lines and devouring any sheep who fall into the river. The Fidel is a fairy who haunts lonely pools and hides herself in the grasses by the water. The Glastig, half woman and half goat, tends to lurk in the dark of caves behind waterfalls. And the Lorag of the Hebrides is a gentler breed of water fairy, although, as a connoisseur of music, even she can prove dangerous to those who dare to sing out of tune. In Ireland, a fairy woman known as the Lady of the Lake bestows blessings and good weather to those who seek her favor. In some towns, she's still celebrated or propagated at midsummer festivals. Her name recalls the Welsh Lady of the Lake who gave King Arthur his sword and now guards his body as he sleeps in Avalon. Brittany, on the west coast of France, also claims to be the home of the Lady of the Lake, the Chateau de Camper, where she said to have lived and raised Sir Lancelot, still stands near the old forest of Paimpont, called Bracasilialande in Arthurian lore. A magnificent manor house of golden stone, crumbling romantically at the edges. Nearby is a lake whose origin is attributed to Morgan Le Fay, located in the mysterious Val Sans Retour, Valley of No Return. Chalice Well in Glastonbury is one of the several sites where the Holy Grail is reputed to be hidden. At the foot of an ancient Glastonbury tour is a lovely garden where one can drink the red tinged water of the well, colored, according to legend, by the blood of Christ carried in the grail. See chapters 8 and 17. Although the Wells association with Arthur may be, as some Arthurian scholars suggest, a legend of recent vintage, archaeological excavations in the 1960s established the site's antiquity, and the place manages to retain a tranquil, mystical atmosphere. There we go. At least we got a commercial, right? Mystical atmosphere despite its transformation from sacred site to tourist attraction. One often finds small offerings in the circle around the well's heavy lid. Flowers, feathers, stones, small bits of cloth tied to a nearby tree. Remnants of ancient pagan practice carried down through the centuries. Middle of page 214. The role of water today. We're coming to the end of this chapter now. In modern times, we generally view such practices as quaintly or foolishly superstitious. We dismiss our early ancestors as ignorant savages who worship natural phenomena because they lack the rationality of science. Yet, a look at the animist religions that still thrive in many cultures around the globe indicates that this may be a simplistic view of nature based religions. See chapter 14. Rather than focusing on the hocus pocus of the supernatural, as they're often portrayed, such religions are rooted in the natural world, celebrating and regulating the relationships between humankind, other species, and the land that sustains us all. In America, animism runs through the indigenous religions of the land. Various springs, wells, and pools are sacred to Native American tribal groups, and in such holy places one finds offerings similar to those by Chalice Well. Feathers, flowers, stones, sage, tobacco, small carved animal forms, scraps of red cloth tied to trees, and other tokens of prayer. The Native American sweat lodge ceremony uses water sprinkled over red hot rocks to create the stems that's called the breath of life. The lodge itself is the womb of Mother Earth in which one is washed clean, purified, and spiritually reborn. In Native American church ceremonies, a pail of morning water is traditionally carried and prayed over by a woman before being sent sunwise around the circle to be shared by all. Water is sacred through its absence in the 4-day Sundance ceremony or the ritual of crying for vision. After 4 days without water or food, the first drop on the tongue is a potent reminder to be thankful for this precious gift from Mother Earth. Tom Blue Wolf of the eastern lower Muskogee Creek Nation speaks of the central importance of water, particularly at a time when water tables worldwide are diminishing at alarming rates. Once upon a time, the Chattahoochee River was known to the people here as the source of life. Every morning we would go to the water and fill ourselves with gratitude and thank the Creator for giving us this source of life. We would honor it throughout the day. At that time, water was known as the Long Man. It came from a place that has no beginning and went to a place that had no end. But now, for the first time in history of our people, we can see the end of water. Mythologist Michael Meade takes note of the ancient symbolism of water and its vital role in our lives today. Of the elements, which some people count as four and others count as five, water is the element of reconciliation. Water is the element of flow. When water goes missing, flow goes missing. The ancient Irish used to say that there were two suns in the world. One you see rise in the morning, the other is very deep in the earth, and it's called the black sun or inner sun. It's a hot fire in there. No one knows how hot. The earth is roughly 70% water because of that hidden sun inside. When the water goes down, the earth heats up too much. Part of the global warming that's happening everywhere. It happens inside people also, because people are like the earth. People are 70% water, like the earth, and people have a hidden sun, or else wouldn't be 96 degrees when it's not 40 degrees outside. Everyone in the world is burning, and the water in the body keeps that burning from becoming a fever. What happens literally also happens emotionally and spiritually. So when people forget how to carry water and how to use water to reconcile, you get an increasing amount of heated conflict. And we're seeing around the world today as we're seeing around the world today. In many cultures, it's the elders who carry the water because elders are the peace bringers. When a culture can't remember a or imagine peace on its streets, or how to negotiate peace. It means its elders have forgotten what to do, how to carry water. The following evoc- evocative words come from a film about Chief Seattle, depicting the forced transfer of Suquamish lands to the U.S. government in 1855. The shining water that moves in the streams and rivers is not just water, but the blood of our ancestors. If we sell you our land, we must remember that it is sacred. Each ghostly reflection in the water of the lakes tells of events and memories in the life of my people. The water's murmur is the voice of my father's father. The rivers are our brothers. They quench our thirst. They carry our canoes and feed our children. So you must give to the rivers the kindness you would give any brother. This we know, the earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. I'm reminded here at Dewpath Well that I, too, have distant ancestors who didn't consider themselves greater than the land on which they lived, didn't take good, pure water for granted, and who knew human beings belonged to the earth. An old English folklorist told me once that nature's spirits would live in a well, a spring, a lake, or a grove of trees only as long as they were remembered and addressed respectfully. If the spirits were neglected, they'd leave the place. The land would feel soulless and dead henceforth. Remembering this, I dropped a pin into the brown water of Dewpath Well. The well house stands near a farmyard. I could hear the traffic of the roads nearby, and yet somehow the spot still seemed timeless, magical, and very much alive. I cupped my hands, drank from the well, and whispered, "Thank you," as I left. I couldn't even tell you now who exactly I was addressing: a nature spirit, a well fairy, a Celtic goddess, or the earth itself. And yet, in that ancient place, I swear that someone was listening. Page 217. And that completes chapter 15. We're moving into chapter 16 on our return of the healing power of water by Dr. Masaru Emoto. That was a brilliant, brilliant reading. Wow. Gratitude. Thank you, YouTube. Hi, his heart love. All those readers out there. Dr. Carr. Professor Hunter. Oh, much love to all you guys. I will be in there soon to come listen live. So this was chapter 15, Water Lore and Ritual in World Mythology. Beautiful reading. Thank you all. you for reading with us. High is heart, love, and honor. I want you to have a wonderful day. Remember to honor your world. Honor the ones you love around you. Remember to look up. Peace, peace. I wish you all the best. This is a great read, right? Oh, yes. We are. We're waking them up. Peace, peace, guys. Have a wonderful day. I love you.